Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Good evening, TV fans, and welcome to the internet's most conspicuously contemplative look back at vintage and venerable video. Those were the days. That's right, we look back at old TV through a modern lens with nostalgic eyes, and this month we're talking about Hanna-Barbera. I am your host this week and commentator Travis, aka TV's Travis, and here they are. The most madcap mess of marvelous MCs to ever monologue their many miscellaneous notions of nostalgia, competing for the title of World's Wackiest Podcaster. First up, we have the sensational speaker of silly slogans, Steven, in the number 4 Ford pickup, the Rapid Rescinder.
Oh, it's not just a Ford pickup. It's a Ford pickup with peanut butter and jelly slapped on the front of it. Maybe a couple slices of bread in the back. And a ham launcher that launches hams at people. And a Twinkie for me to eat. That's what my car looks like that I made up just now. Thank you, Travis.
Next, we have the astounding artisan Audie and his number 2 racer, the Doodle Buggy.
That's right, the Doodle Buggy, where I pull out pens and paintbrushes and stuff and doodle my way through the race. Is there a hole in that boulder to go through? Nope, not until I draw it, and then I go right through. And let me tell you how many times I need to say Wacky Races throughout this whole monologue, because Wacky Races is what we're watching, the Wacky Races.
And finally, the crafty creator of comforting quilts, Amy, in her number 9 Singer sedan.
All right, so racing's really popular. I guess I'll give this a shot. I guess I'll watch a couple here. Well, not that doesn't seem legal. I don't. Well, how? No, well, you can't just do that. Well, I don't know about any of this, you guys.
We are kicking off a month of all Hanna-Barbera shows with one of my favorites. That's right, Wacky Races. Wacky Races was a cartoon from my youth. I adored it. It ran 34 episodes of Wacky Races were produced. And it began in 1968, ran to January 4th, 1969. What I want to know is, did any of the rest of you grow up watching this on reruns like I did, starting with Audie?
You know, I was looking at it, and I'm not sure how much I watched Wacky Races itself. I do remember watching something like this, and then I remembered there was another show called Wake, Rattle, and Roll, which I talked to you guys about before, which was like
Mhm.
had a live action thing and then had other animated things. And one of the animated shows was a updated version of Wacky Races called Fender Bender 500, and it had more of the more contemporary, well-known Hanna Barbera
Okay.
people like Yogi Bear, um, Augie Doggy and his son, and all those guys. In they were all in some kind of pickup truck themed around themselves. Um, so I remember that more, but I definitely remember seeing some of this too. Like as soon as the Slag Brothers came on, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I remember that." So yeah, I remember watching it some. Not probably not as much as you, but I definitely remembered it, and this was a fun rewatch.
Absolutely. Steven, how about you?
Oh, yeah. Right before school. I don't remember what block of cartoons it was, but there was a time where, like, I would turn on the TV and there's a segment of my life where I watched all the Aesop's fables and Dudley Do Rights and stuff. And then at some point, I don't remember ever changing the channel, but there was all this stuff. Like there was your Hanna-Barbera cartoons, one of which was Wacky Races, and there was some Space Race was another one. I think that was a thing that happened. But
I seem to remember that one, yeah.
yeah, but Wacky Races was one of my favorites because of how wacky it was. I loved the cars and I loved watching the shenanigans unfold. And it was the same story all the time. But it's the perfect thing to watch while you're cramming down a Pop Tart or, some cinnamon Eggo thingies, if that was around at the time. I don't recall. But, when you're eating your Fruity Pebbles and you're watching Wacky Races, that's childhood right there in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
Amy, how about you?
I definitely remember I associate it with my dad for some reason. So I assume that he quoted it a lot. I also, in preparation for this episode, when you said that we were doing Wacky Races, the Stop the Pigeon song started running in my head, which is actually from the spin-off
Yep.
of Dastardly and Muttley's flying machine thing, whatever the spin-off is.
Yep.
So I think maybe that, I mean, it's all the same thing.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, no, I definitely watched Wacky Races at some point.
Yeah, and what's interesting is September 14th, 1968 to January 4th, 1969 was the original release of Wacky Races. So it's only a few months. Technically it's 17 episodes, but it's 34 segments, kind of each race was broken into 2 segments, each kind of leg of the race, and they would always go to some random place like Mustard Packet, Arkansas, and the and like this zigzaggy, and they'd show a map and they'd have just zigzag pattern they were doing. And basically every single episode was exactly the same. You had the opening, little narration, and then the race would start, and it would be some combination of the 10 cars, which we're going to get to because they're amazing. And then Dick Dastardly and his pal Muttley trying to stop the rest of the racers from winning in some way or another, and failing miserably, and then some random car winning the race, and we'd move on to the next week. If Dastardly had just put like a tenth of the energy he put into trying to stop everyone to actually winning the race, he wins hands down.
If he
Because
just drove, just go forward.
Yeah, just drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He put so much effort into stopping them, and it's great every single time, because he always ends up just short of the finish line.
Yeah.
It's the great trope.
And they'll have like a lead on them. They'll say Dick Dastardly in first place. What is he up to now? And like he's building a house, in the middle of the racetrack. That's how he's. Why not just go, man? Just go.
Real tortoise and hare energy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
He's made an exact replica of his car, the Mean Machine, but filled it with a dummy and dynamite, and he's sending it towards the rest of the racers. Silly stuff like that. There were a couple of spin-offs of this. Amy mentioned one. It was Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines, where they were trying to catch a pigeon.
Stop the pigeon.
And that theme song is forever burned in my brain
If
number
I
one,
still did ringtones, I would be changing my phone immediately.
Well, number one, it's such a catchy song, and then I had an album that I picked up called Saturday Morning Cartoons Greatest Hits. And it was a bunch of mostly Hanna-Barbera, but it was covers of cartoon theme songs done by 90s bands at the time. They were, some of them were fairly popular. Sublime did a cover of Hong Kong Phooey.
Mm-hmm.
You had Matthew Sweet did the Scooby-Doo Where Are You?
Was the Gin Blossoms on there?
No, there was the Ramones doing Spider-Man.
Yeah, that one I remember.
Yeah.
But the Reverend Horton Heat did a double, because the 2 that he picked were short. One was the original theme to Johnny Quest.
Yeah.
And that's all instrumental, and then it transitioned into Stop That Pigeon. So that's that version I have in my head more than the original cartoon version of it. But Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines was another great one, because you had Dastardly and Muttley plus a crew of just a bunch of other morons trying to help Dastardly. It's the only way I can put it. So this is the nicest way I can say it.
Yeah.
The other spin-off of Wacky Races was The Perils of Penelope Pitstop.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
And I do remember that show as well. And basically, if I remember correctly, that was a very similar to Wacky Races type of thing. It was just sort of her adventures. And that, it was a fairly simple formulaic show, but it kind of paved the way for things, other Hanna-Barbera stuff like the All-Star Laugh Olympics is very influenced, I feel like, by Wacky Races. And do any of you remember the NES game for Wacky Races? Because there was one.
I remember it. I played it.
Yeah.
And
They actually came out with a board game probably about 5 years ago. The model, like the pieces in it, are incredible. Like I have no idea if the game's any good, but it looks fantastic.
I'm going to need to check that out, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So, Penelope Pitstop and the Anthill Mob were spun off into the Perils of Penelope Pit Stop. So you had the Anthill Mob. Before we kind of talk about some of the spin-offs and sort of similar series that Hanna-Barbera did, this was a race with, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11 contestants in the race every week. And they didn't always all feature in every episode. They would kind of have some of them be featured more than others and sort of rotate them through. Almost always you had, always was Dick Dastardly and Muttley in their car, 00, the Mean Machine. I loved Sergeant Blast and Private Meekley in the Army Surplus Special, the number 6.
Yes, that was great.
Professor Pat Pending, I did not remember at all, but that is a very clever name.
I definitely remembered Professor Pat Pending in the converted car. I mostly remembered the name because I remember as a kid even thinking that was hilarious because you'd always see the patent pending.
Yep.
So that was great. The Army Surplus Special was a fun one because it was a tank, and they always had these random, like, the weapon, the cannon on the tank would change. Sometimes it was a water cannon. Sometimes it would, I think in the episode that we watched, they used it to send out a giant plunger with like a inflatable bridge to go over a lake.
Yep.
So they were always fun. Peter Perfect and the Turbo Terrific, which was much more phallic looking than I remembered. Like very blatantly so.
Oh yeah.
And I did watch a thing where a YouTube video where somebody ranked all of the racers, and they put him down towards the bottom mostly because of his car. And he showed a clip from an episode where his car was all like deflated and shriveled up.
Oh no!
And he grabbed the car and shook it, and then it stiffened.
Laughed way too loud.
So,
it looks a lot like the ambiguously gay duo car.
It does
from
doesn't it?
SNL. Now it makes sense.
You had Lazy Luke and Blubber Bear in the Arkansas Chugabug. And these were all original characters to this series, and I don't really remember many of them outside of what spun off showing up anywhere else. Blubber Bear was just afraid of everything, so he would literally blubber and like that was like his whole. Most of the characters didn't really speak; they just kind of made noises.
Yeah.
There's Professor Pet Pending in the converter car, which was so much fun because that thing it could change into literally anything. Whatever they needed for that particular episode, it could become.
The plot demands it.
Yeah.
Yep. The Red Max in the Crimson Hay Baler, which was their spin on the Red Baron.
The Red Baron, yeah.
Yeah.
Which he had a plane with wheels on it that could just barely fly. It was mostly flightless. That always got me. Penelope Pit Stop and the Compact Pussycat.
All right.
Yep. The Anthill Mob and the Bulletproof Bomb.
All right, we need to talk about this for a hot second. All right.
Okay.
So, I listened to the last podcast on the left. It's like a true crimey kind of podcast, and not that long ago they covered the Anthill Gang and Rock Terrio, which was a Canadian doomsday death cult, and I was like.
Okay.
Now hang on. I'm like, no. This is like 9 years prior to that. And I was like, okay, that's because I was like, at first I'm like, wait a minute, did they say that Anthill Mom? That seems like a strange pull. Is that what we're doing? I mean, because it's like they've got Clyde. Clyde isn't like and Bonnie and Clyde not exactly great people overall.
No.
And so I was like, this is a weird pull. No. This predates it pretty significantly. So that was kind of that threw me pretty.
So you're saying the Anthill Gang was inspired by Wacky Races?
Clearly.
There's
Clearly
no other
huge in
reason.
Canada,
Yeah.
Obviously.
The Gruesome Twosome in the Creepy Coop.
So
also
good.
That's good.
Not the Addams Family.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not the Addams Family.
Not Lurch and Wednesday at all.
Not at all.
And I love that they have dragon power on their car, and they can just there's just a dragon hanging out in there, just chilling, and occasionally comes out.
Not at all like the Addams Family.
Yeah.
No, not a bit. Rufus Roughcut and his beaver Sawtooth in the Buzz Wagon.
They were so good.
And And again, you had like like the gruesome twosome don't really talk; they just make noise. I think there were episodes occasionally where they would speak, but it was very rare. Sawtooth, just just made noise, but they had the Buzzwagon, and it had buzzsaw blades for wheels. It was fantastic.
Have a
that's
lot
practical.
of I mean, it gives you traction. That's
Mhm.
obviously.
And finally, the Slag Brothers and the Boulder Mobile, car number 1,
Yes.
Yeah.
which were definitely not just two Captain Cavemans
Right.
at all.
This is the amazing thing about Hanna-Barbera is you just feel like they threw all their ideas in a blender and just ran them and just said,
Yep.
let's see what comes out. Or just whatever character someone drew they had laying around that we'd already animated some of. They were like, let's just
So the
put them
thing
in
is,
cars.
this predates Captain Caveman.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
was gonna
Okay.
say this is one of those
Yeah.
things where it's like they threw these characters in, and then later on it's like we need a character
That's
for
good
something.
enough.
Let's get one of their Wacky Racers or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We either need a cartoon or a breakfast cereal. Let's go through the archives.
What do we got?
What's in there?
What I did
Wait.
like is the show had, like, they didn't just have the same kind of, like, it was very formulaic, but it was always different winners.
Yeah.
So it would be, in the first episode is Seesaw to Arkansas. And I love the titles too, like Creepy Lemon or Creepy Trip to Lemon Twist. And that was all the places they would go. Y-O-Y, Wyoming. And they would do at least the top 3 finishers. Sometimes they would do all 10 of them, all 11. But they varied up. So it wasn't just, Peter Perfect wins every time. No, he actually barely ever won. I think the Turbo Terrific won 4 races out of like 17. So I liked that they did that. I thought that was a lot of fun. And I just love some of these. The Speedy Arkansas Traveler, the Zippy Mississippi Race. Ooh, Traffic Jambalaya. That sounds tasty.
That sounds delicious.
And I love, like, just the names of places that they would go and the silliness of wherever they were. It was just a lot of fun, like that. And what I think the other kind of neat thing about this was sort of what Audie was touching on, is like, we're just gonna make up a bunch of very simple characters.
Yep.
And then later on they're gonna flesh them out into more stuff. They've got cavemen. All right, Captain Caveman's one of the, based off the Slag Brothers. I loved Lazy Luke and Blubber Bear. You never see them again, but like just that aesthetic was great.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah.
driving that jalopy that they've got like patched together. He's steering it with his feet
Yeah.
because he's a redneck. He doesn't wear shoes. He's just wearing a pair of overalls, and that's it. And steering with his feet, and he's got his buddy Blubber Bear there, who's just afraid of everything that happens, no matter what. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just a lot of fun. Did you have? We'll start with Amy. Do you have a favorite Wacky Racer?
Oh boy.
If you can remember one, or if when watching this one.
No, I
stood
mean,
out to you.
I think it's got to be the gruesome twosome. I mean, that's my
That
vibe. I
feels
mean,
very on
aside
brand for you.
from Dick Dastardly, because he's just the worst. And I appreciate that about him. Yeah, no, but it's the gruesome twosome and the creepy coop.
Yeah, gruesome twosome. Steven, how about you?
This is easy. Luke and the Blubber Bear and the Arkansas Chugabug. If for nothing else, they called it the Arkansas Chugabug, and that was the one when they announced it. I laughed the hardest. It's like, yeah, that's good. So I'll take it.
That's probably the best name for a car, like a race car ever, is the Arkansas Chugabug.
Oh, I'm renaming
Audie,
my truck the Chugabug.
Perfect. Audie, how about you? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, I'm just gonna go with Dick Dastardly and Muttley because they're the most
Yeah.
memorable. I mean, that's what this cartoon is basically based around. It's like we've
Yeah.
got to have Dick Dastardly race a bunch of other people. Let's create some other people, and then have Dick Dastardly be doing a bunch of dumb stuff, and he never wins because he can't get out of his own way. And just Muttley over there laughing at everything, the whole time.
Yeah, and how fun would it have been to be the voice actor for Muttley? All you have to do is that wheezing laugh, or just a bunch of mumbling.
Yeah. Who was it? Frank Welker, I'm guessing.
Surprisingly, no.
I don't think
it
so.
wasn't Frank Welker. It was. Hold
The
on.
one animal he didn't voice.
Right.
Yeah.
So Paul Winchell did Dick Dastardly. He was
Yeah.
also the voice of Clyde and Private Meekley.
You'll remember
probably
him from
turn
your
up
Winnie the
again.
Pooh. He
Yep.
played
Yeah.
Tigger.
Yep. Don Messick actually was the voice of Muttley. He also
Okay.
was the voice of Professor Pat Pending, Gravel of the Slag Brothers, Bella Gruesome when Bella would speak, Ring-a-Ding, and Sawtooth. So they got a lot of mileage out of a very small cast. There's only 6 voice actors for this entire show. One of them is Dave Willock, who was the narrator, who does like 80% of the words
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah.
He was good too. Like the narrator,
he's very
like
good.
without that, I don't even know what the show would be. He's perfect because he talks to the characters like they've got earpieces in. You know.
That's the
That
best
was
part.
Yeah.
I love that part.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Dastardly talking to him about and what did he kept calling him? Was he calling him Booby?
Something like that. Yeah.
Or something like
like a
that?
little
Yeah.
pet name.
Constantly. Yeah, he had a pet name for him throughout the entirety of the episode. It was so good.
I think we
And,
need to do this with F1. I think we need more we need
Yes.
more pit conversation. Like we need more driver conversation with the, with the color
Heck yeah.
commentators.
I like
Let's
that. Yeah.
go.
Never mind your
Yeah.
pit boss who's telling you when to pass and stuff.
That's
Let's
fine.
talk to the color
Right.
commentator who is just
Oh,
talking
what are you
about
having
your
for
racing.
lunch today?
Yeah. How's the race going so far, Dale Earnhardt Jr.? He's not
Because they'll
racing
do it
anymore.
in like baseball or football every once in a while and mic up somebody in particular.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, they'll do like in the cockpit stuff, but I want them to just have a conversation. I know
Something
you're
to
going
talk.
very fast around a lot of curves, but I'm gonna need you to entertain me a little harder.
mhm.
If you win today, what's dinner look like? Is it bigger than
Yeah.
if you were to lose?
So
What-
Penelope Pitstop was the only woman racer. And of course, she's the tropey, just cares about her appearance. Her car has lipstick dispenser and hair dryer and all those tropey things that you have going on in the 60s.
Yeah,
Listen, it was
it was
a
another
different
time.
time. Yeah. Not great.
It was a
but
lot
could have
of
been
guys
worse.
sitting around a table with cigars going, all right, what are women?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What
Great.
are women? Question mark. End of sentence.
Fantastic, everybody.
They asked
Nailed
the
it.
secretary her opinion once. She begins to speak and
They
they cut
did
her
not
off. and-
listen. Yeah.
Right.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, sweetheart. Can you get us some coffee?
As they slap her on the butt as she's leaving the
Yeah,
room.
she walks out.
So,
Oh gosh, you're so right.
but she is one of 2 characters that got her own series after this. So, I mean, there
Yeah.
is that.
Yeah, well, they mastered how to write women, so I mean, obviously, they're like, we got this now. Let's make a girls' cartoon. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We totally understand.
Oh yeah.
So they spun off Penelope and the Anthill Mob and did the Perils of Penelope Pitstop. And the same year, so that was 1969, and they also did Dick Dastardly and Muttley, given the Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines the same year. And Captain Caveman came along in 1977, modeled after the
Wow.
Slag Brothers.
It's a long time away from this.
Yeah.
8 years?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And then, Audie, you mentioned Wake, Rattle, and Roll. In
Mhm.
1990, a cartoon segment in Wake, Rattle, and Roll called Fender Bender 500 was produced. And that was exactly what you were mentioning. It had, Yogi, Augie Doggy, all that, which I do remember. And I would sometimes get conflated because I think Dastardly, if I remember right, Dick Dastardly shows up in the Laugh Olympics, doesn't he? I feel like he was there because the Laugh Olympics was one I remember with like Scooby-Doo, and you would have all of them showing up as well.
It's not on his Wikipedia,
Really?
but he did do Yogi's Treasure Hunt, apparently. And he was in the Fender Bender 500.
I do not
Wacky
see.
Races. I don't see it. in
There's a
his-
Dastardly Dalton appeared, but I don't think he showed up in the Laugh Olympics.
The thing from this Wikipedia that I need to find, though, is this 2016 DC comic, Wacky Raceland, a quote, dark and gritty reimagining of the series set after the apocalypse in a similar vein to the Mad Max franchise.
Whoa.
The comic ran for 6 issues from May to December 2016.
No, I need that.
Yes, please.
I've
I
gotta
will.
find
I will
that.
take that.
If I haven't told you before, look for those modern incarnations of the Flintstones comics, where like
Oh.
the animals in the like trash compactor are talking to each other about how long they live doing these jobs and stuff, and it's just like, whoa, they take it to a dark place.
Well, you know, everything needs a
Oh.
dark and gritty version. That's
There's a
Uh-huh.
trade. There's a trade. We can just buy add to cart.
Oh,
Okay, great.
perfect.
Fabulous. Everything's wonderful.
oh,
Carry on.
yes,
Yeah,
please.
no, he Dastardly is not part of the Laugh Olympics.
Yeah,
I thought for
It
sure.
should have been.
They didn't have Muttley. They had a knockoff version of Muttley called Mumbly
Mm-hmm.
from the Mumbly cartoon show, and the Dread Baron.
Yeah, he
That's-
bears a
that's what I'm
strong
thinking of.
bears a strong resemblance to Dick Dastardly, who is revealed to be his twin brother in the comic book Laugh Olympics number 13. So the Dread Baron is the brother of Dick Dastardly.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned video games, so get this. All right, so the main plot of Wacky Races, characters, unusual fictional vehicles, over-the-top weapons, would later inspire the kart racing game genre of the 1990s. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those kart races probably got inspiration from Wacky Races.
Sure.
But they had Wacky Races 1991 for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a Wacky Races that came out in 2000. And there was Wacky Races starring Dastardly and Muttley in 2000. Wacky Races Mad Motors in 2007. And Wacky Races Crash and Dash in 2008, another racing game. There were 5 video games based off of this cartoon that stopped airing in 1969.
Well, it's so I was gonna bring this up. Like I remember the NES game Wacky Races, which was really a platformer.
too.
It wasn't a lot of racing in it. But I miss these latest ones. But I was sitting there watching the show, going, "Man, this would make a great video game. Wonder if they should make a new." And clearly, maybe they thought in 2000 everyone missed it, so they said, "Well, it's a great property. Let's make another video game." And then they tried then, and it didn't work then. But I feel like if you put a AAA studio behind Wacky Races, you could make a sweet video game. But
Listen,
instead,
Everybody loves Mario Kart.
right?
Mario Kart is like the greatest game.
Sure,
So like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But this could
do
be
this.
this could be just as good. But for some reason, like
Yeah.
Hanna-Barbera all by itself, it's like Kmart version of all the other cartoons. You know, it's the
Yeah.
Kmart version of Mario Kart. They won't try. They just do good enough. And good enough isn't good enough for us game maker people. Go out and make a better
Yeah,
one.
well, they tried with the what was it, the brawling version of Hanna-Barbera and
Yeah.
Warner Brothers things, and that went
The DC
pretty quick.
they turned it off. They said it'll be back later.
Exactly.
It's like, how do I bought the game? How do you turn it off? Like what
Yeah.
this is not the world I want to live in.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice. It was good for you to try it out. It's like, wait, I thought we bought it. I thought it was a game we could. No,
Yeah.
oh no.
Look, before we get too far, this could be a total pitfall into how bad Warner Brothers is screwing everything up. So let's steer back onto the course of the Wacky Races.
I want to go down this hole, Audie. I'm gonna.
Listen, you're in a car full of dynamite. We need you to slow down.
Nope, I'm taking my paintbrush and drawing us a tunnel through this rock. So get back on course.
Thank you.
One of the things I love though is how unique all of the different designs of the cars and the characters were. Like Hanna-Barbera gets kind of a bad rap sometimes for they and some of it is deserved. It was very cheap animation. It was very simple, and they reused a lot. And they did reuse a lot of designs, a lot of ideas. A lot of their shows were the same thing with just a different look to it. You know, whether it was Scooby-Doo, Jabberjaw, any number of the mystery gang solving mysteries with their strange either talking animal or anthropomorphic thing.
Yeah.
But I always loved the design of all of it. Like,
Yeah.
it always looked so good. And Audie, I really am curious for you as the kind of the artist of the group. What do you think of like just the car designs, especially?
The car designs are great. I mean, Hanna-Barbera is one of those studios that just put a stamp on animation of like, we have a particular style, and
Mhm.
theirs was a very zany style. Like, there was not a this is too much for us to do. And I really love and appreciate that. And you see it especially in this show with the cars and the way everybody's driving. Um, whether they're driving with their feet or they're driving, halfway behind the car or up in the front of the car, if it even looks like a car, or if it's just, a rock that you're hitting your head in. Um, yeah, I love all the different variations that they did. So like it definitely feels like they came up with an idea and just said, artists have fun.
It really did, and obviously they put the effort into the cars and the characters, and then the backgrounds were very simple, um, which is fine. I have no
I
problem
love the
with any of
backgrounds,
that.
honestly. It's pretty
Um,
terrific.
Yeah.
so in the UK, the show was very popular, and there is an annual Goodwood Festival of Speed. That there are life-size replicas of these cars that
Nice.
exist.
Yes, please.
And I will post some pictures of those in our Discord. Um,
Like, I
well,
want to
here you
learn
can.
how to weld and work sheet metal just so I can turn a go-kart into one of these cars. You know? Like, just take a go-kart and just find a way to weld a body on top of it that looks looks like these. And that would be the best. I would drive it all over the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at some of these pictures right now. They're crazy. I would drive the hell out of the Mean Machine. Uh, the Crimson Hay Baler looks great. I don't love Penelope's car, but that's a weird one to do because it's got like the big eyelashes and the
Mhm.
the eye headlights. But they have the Boulder Mobile, like somebody built. Somebody built the boat version of the converter car.
Oh,
Nice.
So
nice.
it this show really I think was a precursor to a lot of other Hanna-Barbera things. And obviously it spawned a bunch of characters, whether they were directly used in other series or um, done as inspiration for stuff later on. Um, but I do feel like this was kind of that golden age of Hanna-Barbera. Was like this was the start, right around the start of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? um, Before it got to the point of just being everything was recycled and reused. They were still trying out new ideas and doing new things because this is just a fun concept for a show. Like we're gonna do a fun kid show of just they're racing. That's it.
Mhm.
That's all you need to know. And hilarity ensues. You make one character trying to stop everybody else, and you just run with that and have fun. You can recycle the same types of jokes over and over, and no one cares. Because Stephen, like you said, you're watching it while you're stuffing a Pop Tart in your face and you're drinking
Yeah.
your morning OJ, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's kind of it's like good sort of half pay attention to show, which is perfect for kids.
Yeah.
Really, when you think about it, you don't want to get too developed in a plot too early because you're just going to lose the kids.
Yeah.
I just I just love this show a lot. And I wanted the Hanna-Barbera cartoons to have a resurgence, where there's the effort. Like, and I mean, there has been. Scoob was pretty good. I don't know if people
Yes.
didn't like it,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but I feel like stuff like this has legs if you just give it to the right people, that respect it more than Hanna-Barbera itself did for only
Yeah.
17 episodes. Like, come on, man, commit to something. Like, we were going through post show. You guys don't know this in audio land, but post show last week, we were going through episodes of Hanna-Barbera, and every series that you remember had 12 episodes or
Yeah.
13. It's
Hmm.
like, can y'all not commit? Like, some of this stuff we like. Why is it gone?
And some of it I feel like could really get a revamp. Like I feel like a modern take Wacky Races could have some legs to it
Mm-hmm.
because you can bring back some of these old characters. You've got some new stuff. You update things. You add new things in here and there, and you can sort of like taking Ducktales and bringing it
Yeah.
current.
Oh
You
my
could
gosh.
do
Yeah.
something like that. You get the right voices to some of these characters, and it could be a hell of a lot of fun. You mentioned Scoob. Dick Dastardly is in Scoob.
That's right.
Yes,
I
he
remembered
is.
that. Yeah.
Dastardly and Muttley are the
Yeah, he
villains in
is.
Scoob. And apparently Rock and Gravel make a cameo.
Nice.
Yeah,
So,
'cause Captain Caveman's in there in a very specific role.
but I think if you were going to modernize any Hanna-Barbera property that you could think of just off the top of your head, taking Scooby-Doo out of the equation because Scooby-Doo has kind of remained evergreen
Mm-hmm.
and sort of been redone every so often. And I'm sorry, the live action Scooby-Doo movie, especially the first one, not as bad as people would
I
think.
think it's
No.
great.
But I think it's a lot of fun.
I am
Yeah.
not ashamed to
Also
enjoy
has
that movie.
Rowan Atkinson in it, and
Mhm.
that man can be in anything, and I will find it funny.
Yeah, I did
And
not
who is
expect to
behind
have
that
a.
movie?
Oh yeah, James Gunn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did not expect to walk out of that movie having a crush on Velma, of all characters. And that's where I was
Ugh,
at the
Uh-huh.
time.
if any movie shut that up, jeez.
But minus Scooby Doo, if you could pick, Steven, one Hanna-Barbera property and say, give Hanna-Barbera or whomever, a budget to do whatever they want and make a new series out of it, what would you choose?
Oh geez, there's thousands. We just did
Yeah.
Wacky Races, and like I feel ashamed picking that one. I love that show, But why not make a show about Magilla Gorilla? Just bring him back, Just put Magilla Gorilla out there. Magilla Gorilla and Top Cat in a buddy cop comedy. That's my pitch.
I like it. I'm here for that one. I'm here for that. Audie, how about you? If you could pick one, what would you pick?
Oh, I'm gonna pick one that I couldn't find to do for this theme this month. I'm gonna do Pirates of Darkwater. It was this really out there kind of adventure series that they did only, I think they only did like 15, 16 episodes of. It was just a super interesting take on the whole, um, you know, sci-fi kind of, but everybody was on sea. There's this dark water stuff that nobody knows what it is, but it's bad. Really interesting kind of fantasy series that I think could have done a lot better if it had been given more time.
Okay. That's a good one. Yeah. That's one. When I talked to people about how we were doing Hanna-Barbera, quite a few people mentioned Pirates of Darkwater that I spoke to. Amy, how about you? If you could pick a Hanna-Barbera, do you have one that comes to mind?
I think so. I mean, we've seen reimaginings in parody form of a fair number of these very successfully. I'm gonna go ahead and pick a weird pick. I'm gonna go ahead and say because it could be very problematic, and I'm here to watch them dance around it. I'm gonna pick Inch High Private Eye. I
Oh,
just go ahead, like make this work. I dare you.
Hmm.
that's a good one. That's
Mhm.
one I didn't even think about, but
Yeah,
that
I
would
dare
get
you to make
interesting.
this work and be okay.
Make this work in a modern world.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like those choices. Those are very good. And I do think Wacky Races is the one to do. And like the All-Star Laugh Olympics was hilarious, and it was such a brilliant idea at the time to take all of your characters and put them into this Olympic setting. I thought it was really great, but I think Wacky Races for me is just the one because you really give them carte blanche. You can just go
Yeah.
with, you've got 11 choices from the classic, and you can get rid of Peter Perfect.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be there. You could do a better version of that, modern,
Yeah.
and have that same kind of trope of a character, because that's what these are. They're 11 tropes to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But you then updating some of those, coming up with some new stuff, coming up with stuff that's more topical to today, and then on top of that, just silly races and silly places to go. And what does Dastardly and Muttley? What do they do to try to stop them now? Do you make somebody who's worse than Dastardly and Muttley?
Oh, yeah.
You can go in a lot of different directions with that. I just think it's a lot of fun. It's a very open, kind of open blank slate of creativity. And with
Yeah.
the creatives that are out there today, there'd be some fun stuff. There'd be definitely some sort of either robotic or alien or sci-fi angled thing going on. You'd have just all sorts of crazy zany stuff, and zany I think is the right word for it. This show was just zany and out there, and didn't shy away from being weird.
Mm-hmm.
You need to lean into it. You can't be trying to do something different. Just what it is, just take it and go harder than it did, and I think you would be
Yeah.
successful. I think any pulling back, would be the
Mhm.
wrong direction. I think you really
Oh,
just
for
want to
sure.
go in. And there's only a handful of people I think I would even trust to this property. But they would end up giving it to no name who's a what sits out there in Hollywood. And you'd be like, I don't even know who that is. And then it would have direct video all over it. And you'd be like, dang it. We had
You-
such a good opportunity.
You know who I think would be a lot of fun to give this property to would be Dan Provenmeyer and Jeff Marsh, the creators of Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which I thought,
Yeah.
I haven't watched Phineas and Ferb that much, but I've seen like the Pat Pending kind of looked like
Does look a
the
little bit like Doofenshmirtz, yeah.
like a
Yeah.
little bit like I got that. I was like, wait a minute, hang on.
I feel like those two, the imagination end of Phineas and Ferb, because that's a brilliant show. Phineas
Yeah.
and Ferb was a fantastic show, and I feel like they
Yeah.
have the ideas and the imagination to really run with this, where they would come up with a couple. They would take some of the old ones, they would come up with some awesome brand new ones, and if they could do it, even though it's a Disney property, let them work in Doofenshmirtz and or Perry the Platypus. I think would be great, even as just cameos.
Sure.
Or something along the lines. But that's who I would love to see do like an updated version of Wacky Races, because I think they're brilliant.
The other one that I
Mhm.
think could do it is Alex Hirsch, who did Gravity Falls.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
He's
Yeah.
not afraid of getting weird.
that is very true. Yeah, those are that both Gravity Falls and Phineas and Ferb are shows that don't shy away from the zany and the weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I mean, that's all there is to say about Wacky Races. There is like the plot is there's a race, and dastardly tries to stop everybody else and
Yep.
fails at it
Mhm.
every time.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Well,
And
somehow we are skilled enough that we can take either a 10-minute cartoon or a 1 hour long show and turn it into
Yeah.
a 45-minute podcast
It's true.
with the same quality. It's
it is
amazing.
just it's just an ability we all have.
It's so good.
You can't teach that. You're born with it.
Yeah.
We have an innate ability to create 45 minutes to an hour of any content. That's the podcast
Doesn't matter what it
superpower.
is.
Better.
But this isn't the only. We're only scratching the surface. We are just getting started with Hanna-Barbera, and as mentioned, there are dozens upon dozens of shows that they did. Some of them you forget about. Like when I was going through looking at stuff, I forgot that Hanna-Barbera was responsible for the Super Friends and
Yeah.
all of the different Super Friends
Mhm.
iterations, which there are so many of.
I mean, if you
Um,
look at their television series, and if you don't include like the Cartoon Network studios, like the Wikipedia, it's 171 entries in
Oh my gosh.
in Wikipedia. That's
Uh-huh.
so many. And I mean, there's a couple of them on the list that are like, oh, it's a failed pilot that never went anywhere. Like, fine, great. But I mean, most of them are 13 to 18 episodes.
yeah, they would try something, and I mean, there was only a couple that had long lasting legacies, but in terms of like number of episodes, but you remember a lot of them. I mean,
Yeah.
Magilla
Sure.
Gorilla, you remember, or
Yeah.
Grape Ape, or all these
Great
different,
babe.
Great.
like all these different things. Now, Audie, you're taking us in a different direction next week from Wacky Races. Where are we going?
Yeah, we are going back to the future. We're gonna do. Sorry, I just thought of that and it was like, that's perfect for
It was good.
No,
It's so good.
we're I'm just gonna go straight for it. We're gonna do the Jetsons.
I'm so
Yes.
excited.
It's on Max right now. We'll watch season 2, episode 1.
All right.
But we got some interesting things to talk about with this one that I just am discovering. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is gonna be a
Mhm.
very interesting
Yeah.
conversation.
I saw some things recently
Yeah.
about the Jetsons.
And then there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, oh
Mm.
boy.
Lots of
The
social
Jetsons.
progress in the
Yeah.
future, is there?
Yeah.
if that's what you want to call it.
I mean, it's from a few it takes place a few years
Again,
ago, right? So like honestly, everything is about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that
Yeah.
seems legit
Well, this
actually.
flying car is the only thing they missed, you know?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Jetsons next week. That'll be a lot of fun. Now, if you have thoughts, we got some thoughts in the chat room tonight. I know Locutus, who is my friend Jordan, had loved the Gruesome Twosome. They were his favorite
Yeah.
in Wacky Races.
This is correct.
And yeah, did we get an email this week? I don't think we did.
I
But
don't
if you want to
recall.
email us, you can send your emails to thosewere-the-days-show@gmail.com. Send us your feedback. Let us know if you did watch Wacky Races and if you liked it, or the Jetsons. And if you have an idea of who you would love to see do their own version or their own kind of modern take on the Wacky Races, I'm curious to hear those as well. You can also hit us on Twitter, Those Days Show. And every week Audie puts up his fantastic artwork, and this week he killed it yet again.
Nailed
with
it.
us in our
So
own
good.
cars, and it's amazing. Nope, no emails this week, but those were the days show at gmail.com, twitter.com/those days show. You can also check us out Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time at twitch.tv/2dorkstv and hang out like Skeezix and Kurt and Locutus in our chat room and yell stuff at us while we're talking. It's always fun.
Mhm.
And yeah, we'll be back next week talking the Jetsons, which I am excited for. I haven't watched an episode of the Jetsons in forever. In fact, I think the last time I saw George Jetson was when I was rewatching Harvey Birdman,
Right.
the
Oh.
episode that he
Yeah.
was in. So this is gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait. That's a great choice, Audie.
Yes.
So until next week in the Jetsons, for Audie, for Stephen, for Amy, I am Travis saying have a good week, and we'll see you in the future. Huzzah.
Huzzah, indeed.